Before we begin, it is important to understand that the albums covered in this video explore some of the darkest, most unsettling corners of the human experience. Themes of death, despair, mental illness, trauma, and existential dread are woven into the music you're about to learn about. Some of these works are emotionally intense, disturbing, and confrontational, pushing the boundaries of what many would consider comfortable listening. This video is not for everyone. If you are sensitive to dark, disturbing content, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The intent here is not to glorify or sensationalize these themes, but to explore how music can reflect the complexities of the human condition, even when it ventures into uncomfortable territory. Proceed with caution as we descend the abyss.
Welcome back to the weird, depressing, and disturbing albums Iceberg. If you've been following our journey, you already know that we've ventured through some truly unsettling territory. We've explored albums that challenge not just our ears, but our emotions, pushing us to confront chaos, grief, and the darker sides of existence. For those of you just joining us, this is no ordinary music exploration. We're diving deep into albums that disturb, unsettle, and push the boundaries of what music can be. Each tier of this iceberg takes us further from the surface, the deeper into realms where sound becomes an emotional and psychological force. If this is your first step into the descent, welcome, but be prepared. This is a journey not for the faint-hearted. As we descend into Tier 3, Labyrinths of Chaos and Catharsis, the albums here strip away convention, forcing us to confront disorder in all its forms, musically, emotionally, and existentially. Here, the sound itself unravels, revealing a raw, unfiltered core of human experience. These works blur the line between music and chaos, between control and collapse, and with each step, we're pulled further into the unknown. Whether you've been with us from the start, or you're stepping in now, prepare yourself as we move into the first part of Tier 3, where each album unearths new layers of dissonance and disarray. The descent only gets darker from here. Our first descent into Tier 3, Labyrinths of Chaos and Catharsis, begins with Birdseed by Whitehouse. Released in 2003, this album represents one of the most extreme and confrontational pieces of work in the genre of power electronics. Whitehouse's music is not here to entertain. It exists to disturb, provoke, and test the boundaries of what listeners can endure. From the first track to the last, Birdseed creates an oppressive, visceral atmosphere that lingers long after the music stops. The sound is abrasive, filled with relentless waves of harsh noise, distorted feedback, and guttural vocal delivery. There is no melody, no rhythm to guide you, only pure sonic aggression. The album feels as though it's closing in on you, forcing the listener into a state of discomfort that grows more intense with each passing minute. The minimalism of the production enhances this feeling of claustrophobia, creating a sonic landscape devoid of anything familiar or comforting. Lyrically, Birdseed is a cold exploration of some of the darkest aspects of human behavior. The album deals with themes of violence, control, and degradation, touching on subjects that are often taboo or unsettling. The words are delivered in a detached, brutal manner, as though the vocalist is documenting humanity's most base impulses from an almost inhuman perspective. Whitehouse doesn't offer any moral judgment. It simply presents the darkness as it is, and leaves you to confront it. But the controversy surrounding Whitehouse, and Birdseed in particular, is not just about its sound. The band has long been associated with pushing boundaries to the extreme, often to the point of being accused of glorifying violence and misogyny. Their work has been polarizing. Some see it as a powerful form of artistic expression that confronts uncomfortable truths, while others view it as needlessly provocative and harmful. In particular, Birdseed contains references to disturbing real-life violence, including the album's infamous use of a Charles Manson sample, further deepening the controversy around its themes. What makes Birdseed truly disturbing is how it manipulates the listener. It's not just that the album is noisy or chaotic, it's that it forces you to sit with the discomfort, to grapple with sound and subjects that most would rather turn away from. The album confronts you with the raw, unfiltered ugliness of violence, control, and human suffering, and it does so without giving you the escape of melody or resolution. It's an experience that makes you feel complicit in its transgressions, as if by continuing to listen, you've stepped into a space where the rules of morality and comfort no longer apply. The album's deliberate provocation has made it a defining work within power electronics, a genre built on pushing listeners to their emotional and psychological limits, but it's also raised question about art and ethics. How far can art go before it becomes harmful, and where does the line between confronting darkness and indulging in it fall? Whitehouse walks that line with a cold, almost scientific precision, and Birdseed is perhaps the most disturbing experiment in this regard. Our next descent takes us away from the noise and brutality of the previous century and into the vast cosmic stillness of Zelt by Tangerine Dream. Released in 1972, Zelt is often described as a monumental work in the world of ambient and space music, but to call it simply ambient feels like an understatement. Zelt doesn't just occupy space, it creates it. This album is a meditative journey through the void where time feels suspended and sound becomes an exploration of the infinite. Unlike much of Tangerine Dream's later work, Zelt eschews any sense of rhythm, melody, or structure in favor of long, droning soundscapes. The music feels less like a composition and more like a slow cosmic drift through deep space. Synths hum and swell like distant solar winds, while subtle shifts in texture create the feeling of floating through an uncharted, timeless void. Listening to Zelt is like standing on the edge of an abyss, staring into the unknown and feeling the weight of eternity pressing down on you. What's fascinating about Zelt is how it captures a sense of isolation. It's not aggressive, it's not confrontational. Instead, it's unsettling because of its vastness. This isn't music for the human experience. It feels like the sound of the universe itself. There's a coldness to the atmosphere, an inescapable sense that you're completely alone, adrift in a place where time has no meaning. The album's title, Zelt, meaning time in German, reflects the idea perfectly. Time here feels like it's stretching and collapsing all at once, leaving you suspended in a moment that never ends. This sense of cosmic isolation is amplified by the album's origin story. Recorded with a full classical ensemble, including cellos and violins, Zelt represents Tangerine Dream's exploration into the concept of timeless music. In a bold move for the time, they decided to avoid all conventional notions of song structure, creating something that exists outside the boundaries of traditional music. The album was ahead of its time, influencing not only the ambient genre, but also the experimental drone and electronic music that would follow in its wake. But Zelt also carries an air of mystery and intrigue. At the time of its release, music of this kind was largely unheard of, and many listeners struggled to categorize it. It felt like a transmission from another world, alien, unsettling, and completely unlike anything else being produced in the 1970s. The album's minimalistic cover art, featuring a solar eclipse, adds to the mystique, inviting listeners to view it as not just an album, but an experience, a meditation of vastness, of time and space. What makes Zelt particularly haunting is its ability to draw you in so completely. Despite the lack of rhythm or melody, there's an immersive quality to the sound. It's as if the album slowly pulls you into its orbit, lulling you into a trance-like state where you lose track of time. The longer you listen, the deeper you drift, until the boundaries between the music and your own thoughts start to blur. And the effect is both calming and deeply unsettling, a paradox that sits at the heart of the album's power. In this entry, the chaos isn't violent, it's existential. Zelt forces you to confront the vastness of the universe and the insignificance of human existence in the grand scheme of things. It's a cosmic meditation that leaves you feeling small, untethered, and deeply aware of how fleeting time truly is. This is not an album for casual listening. It's an experience that demands patience, introspection, and a willingness to get lost in the infinite. Our next descent takes us into the world of Nick Cave, an artist whose music feels like it's clawing its way out of the deepest, darkest recesses of the human soul. From Her to Eternity, released in 1984, marked Nick Cave's debut with the Bad Seeds, setting the tone for what would become one of the most intense and emotionally charged careers in rock music. This album doesn't just tell stories, it feels like a visceral, emotional purge, dripping with anguish, lust, and obsession. From the very first notes, you can feel the rawness of this record. The instrumentation is chaotic and unpredictable. Discordant guitars, thundering drums, and Cave's tortured, howling vocals combine to create a soundscape that feels unhinged. Every song is teetering on the edge of collapse, as if the music itself is struggling to contain the emotional turmoil at its core. It's a blend of post-punk and blues, but From Her to Eternity never settles into any single genre. Instead, it uses its chaotic nature to amplify the themes of obsession and despair that Cave is known for. Lyrically, this album plunges into the darkest corners of the human psyche. Cave's words are poetic, filled with vivid, often grotesque imagery. Themes of love, lust, and violence intertwine throughout, creating a world where passion is inseparable from destruction. The title track, for example, tells the story of a man so consumed by his love for a woman that he becomes deranged, obsessed, unable to escape his torment. It's not the kind of love that saves, it's the kind that destroys everything in its path. But what really gives From Her to Eternity its unsettling edge is the emotional intensity behind every note and lyric. Cave isn't just performing these songs, he's living them. His vocal delivery ranges from deep, mournful growls to anguished wails, as if he's exorcising his demons in real time. The rawness of his voice, paired with the dissonance of the music, creates an atmosphere of claustrophobic tension. Every track feels like an emotional outburst, barely held together by the chaotic instrumentation surrounding it. One of the album's most striking moments comes when the track, The Mercy Seat, a song that would go on to become one of Nick's most iconic works. Though From Her to Eternity focuses heavily on themes of love and obsession, The Mercy Seat dives into darker territory, exploring themes of guilt and redemption through the perspective of a man on death row. The song captures the complexity of human emotion in the face of mortality, with Cave's lyrics oscillating between defiance, fear, and acceptance as the electric chair looms closer. There's also an interesting story behind the creation of this album. As his previous band, The Birthday Party, disbanded, Cave sought to create something more personal and more chaotic. Living in a small flat in West Berlin, Cave and the Bad Seeds rehearsed and recorded in cramped conditions, which is reflected in the album's claustrophobic sound. The environment of 1980s Berlin, still divided by the wall, added to the atmosphere of tension and unrest, influencing Cave's state of mind and the emotional energy of the music. What makes From Her to Eternity so disturbing isn't just its themes of obsession and despair, it's the way the album feels completely unrestrained. The music is volatile, the lyrics are raw, and the atmosphere is oppressive. It's as if, though the album is a reflection of Cave's own psyche, chaotic and desperate, yet beautifully poetic in its exploration of the human condition, the listener is never offered a moment of relief. Each song drags you deeper into Cave's dark, twisted world. In this entry, the chaos is personal. From Her to Eternity forces you to confront the most intense and destructive emotions: lust, anger, fear. And it does so with a soundtrack that feels as volatile and unpredictable as the emotions themselves. The result is an album that leaves you both exhilarated and disturbed, a fitting reflection of the complexity of love, pain, and everything in between. Our next descent plunges us into the chaotic, violent world of When the Kite String Pops, the 1994 debut from Acid Bath. This album is a swirling mixture of sludge, doom, and death metal, but to box it into any one genre feels like a disservice. It's an unpredictable, twisted journey into a world where brutality and beauty clash in the most disturbing ways. From its chaotic sound to its grotesque lyrics and artwork, When the Kite String Pops is an album that feels like a descent into madness. Musically, the album is a collision of styles. One moment you're hit with crushingly heavy, sludge-laden riffs, the next you're pulled into eerie, almost serene melodies that feel like they've come from another world. Acid Bath is known for this unpredictability. They lure you in with moments of quiet beauty only to drag you back into a sonic pit of violence and chaos. The sudden shifts in tone leave you disoriented, never knowing what to expect next. The opening track, The Blue, sets the tone with its distorted guitars and growled vocals, but it's the contrast that Acid Bath brings to the album that makes it so disturbing. There's a beauty within the brutality. Moments of acoustic reflection clash with violent outbursts of distortion and rage. The album pulls you between these extremes, making the listener feel like they're caught in a violent storm of emotion. The album's lyrics are equally disturbing. Vocalist Dax Riggs delivers dark, often cryptic lines that are filled with nightmarish imagery, violence, decay, death, and suffering. In songs like Scream of the Butterfly, Riggs juxtaposed hauntingly poetic lines with grotesque descriptions of human fragility, mental illness, and emotional trauma. The lyrics don't just disturb, they provoke thought, dragging the listener into uncomfortable territory where meaning is elusive, but the emotional impact is clear. The darkness of When the Kite String Pops is mirrored by its infamous cover art, a painting titled Pogo the Clown by notorious serial killer John Wayne Gacy. The image alone is enough to set the tone for the album, a sinister reminder of the real-world horrors that exist in the minds of men. Acid Bath's choice to feature such a controversial figure only adds to the album's disturbing nature. It's as if the band is asking, what drives a person to madness? How thin is the line between sanity and violence? Behind the chaotic sound and disturbing imagery, there's a story of real tragedy. Acid Bath's career was tragically cut short after bassist Audie Petrie was killed in a car accident in 1997, leaving When the Kite String Pops and their follow-up Pagan Terrorism Tactics as their only full-length albums. This sense of loss and unfulfilled potential adds another layer of darkness to their music. This chaotic, brutal band was silenced far too soon. But what makes When the Kite String Pops truly unsettling is its atmosphere. Every song feels like it's teetering on the edge of collapse and creating a sense of tension that never fully resolves. The music and lyric form a twisted landscape where beauty and violence are intertwined, where emotional highs and lows clash violently within the same track. It's an album that reflects the darker side of the human psyche, forcing you to confront the things that most would rather turn away from. In this entry, the chaos is not just in the music, it's in the emotions that the album stirs. When the Kite String Pops is a brutal, beautiful, and deeply disturbing journey that forces you to grapple with the extremes of violence and vulnerability. It's an album that leaves you feeling both exhilarated and unsettled, as though you've just witnessed something that can't be unseen. Our next descent takes us into an album that is nothing short of chaotic and otherworldly. The Bedlam of Goliath by the Volta. Released in 2008, this album is a wild, unrelenting journey through frenzied instrumentation and complex arrangements. But beneath the dizzying musicianship lies a darker, more disturbing story, one that involves the supernatural, obsession, and an alleged curse that almost tore the band apart. This isn't just an album, it's a chaotic ritual caught on tape. Musically, The Bedlam and Goliath is one of the most intense and frenetic albums in the Volta's catalog. The band's signature blend of progressive rock, Latin rhythms, jazz fusion, and experimental noise is taken to new extremes here. The guitars shred with wild abandon, the drums move at breakneck speed, and the vocals soar and spiral in every direction. The songs are dizzying in their complexity, often feeling like they could collapse under their own weight, yet somehow they never do. The energy is relentless, like being trapped in a fever dream with no escape. But what makes this album particularly unsettling isn't just the music, it's the story behind its creation. While touring in Jerusalem, Omar Rodriguez Lopez, the band's guitarist and primary songwriter, purchased a Ouija board that the band began to use on tour. They became obsessed with it, regularly consulting the board, which they nicknamed the Soothsayer. According to the band, this board didn't just deliver cryptic messages, it seemed to have a dark energy of its own. As the sessions for the Bedlam Goliath progressed, strange things started happening. The band reported technical malfunctions, injuries, and a growing sense of unease in the studio. The curse became a source of dread for the band, with Rodriguez Lopez eventually burying the Ouija board, hoping to rid themselves of its influence. The supernatural themes that run through the album, possession, madness, and chaos, are not just artistic choices, but reflections of what the band felt they were experiencing at the time. Lyrically, the album is filled with cryptic, fragmented narratives that reflect the unsettling chaos of the music. Themes of betrayal, obsession, control run throughout, with Cedric Bixler Zavala's vocals alternating between desperate wails and cryptic whispers. The lyrics feel like they've been torn from another dimension, fragmented and hallucinatory, adding to the overall sense of disorientation. The words don't tell a straightforward story, but they evoke a deep sense of unease, as if you're only catching glimpses of something far more terrifying lurking beneath the surface. One of the standout tracks, Goliath, is said to be directly influenced by the spirit the band allegedly contacted through the Ouija board. The song captures the feeling of being overwhelmed by something uncontrollable with its relentless pace and frantic energy. The music seems to spiral out of control, much like the band's own experience with the board. What makes the Bedlam and Goliath so disturbing is its sheer intensity, both in sound and in story behind it. The album never lets up, never gives you a moment to breathe. The music and the mythology surrounding its creation are intertwined, creating a sense that this album is more than just a collection of songs. It's a documentation of madness, obsession, and the supernatural. The frenetic energy of the album mirrors the chaos that the band was dealing with during its creation, making the listening experience as overwhelming as the process that birthed it. In this entry, the chaos is both real and imagined. The Bedlam and Goliath is a frenzied supernatural roller coaster that leaves you feeling like you've been possessed by the music itself. It's an album that blurs the line between reality and the paranormal, leaving you questioning what's real and what's simply the product of the band's unraveling psyche. Our next descent thrusts us into the brutal world of Venereology, a 1994 release by Merzbow. Known as one of the pioneers of noise music, Masami Akita, the man behind Merzbow, crafted this album to push the very limits of what sound and listeners can endure. Noise music is often seen as the ultimate rejection of traditional music form, and Venereology stands as one of the most extreme examples of this genre. This is not music in the conventional sense. It's an assault, a punishing barrage of chaotic, distorted noise that offers no release. Venereology doesn't just break the rules of music, it annihilates them. The album is built on relentless layers of distorted sound, feedback, static, and abrasive textures that create an overwhelming wall of noise. There is no rhythm, no melody, and no structure to hold on to. Each track feels like being submerged in an endless sonic storm where the sound itself becomes oppressive, bearing down on the listener with an almost physical weight. The distortion is pushed to its breaking point, and what's left is a raw, chaotic energy that can only be described as auditory violence. While the title Venereology, a term referring to the study of sexually transmitted diseases, suggests themes of decay, infection, and bodily suffering, the album's content is less literal and more experiential. The music reflects the concept of infection through its constant, unrelenting pressure. The noise invades the listener's senses, creating a suffocating atmosphere of tension and unease. It's as if the sound is meant to wear you down, leaving you vulnerable to its assault. This is music as a weapon, designed to overwhelm and disorient. Merzbow's work has always been about exploring the extremes of sound, and Venereology was part of his effort to reach a wider audience outside of Japan, particularly through his association with the burgeoning American noise scene. Released on the Relapse record label known for extreme metal, Venereology was introduced to an audience that was more accustomed to brutal death metal and grindcore than noise music. The crossover appeal of this album lies in its sheer intensity. If metal was about aggression and catharsis, Venereology took that to a new extreme by stripping away any recognizable musical elements, leaving only the raw power of distortion and feedback. The album's sound reflects a fascination with chaos and entropy. Merzbow's use of analog equipment, distortion pedals, tape loops, and primitive synthesizers gives the album an organic yet relentless quality. The sound isn't just harsh, it's dense, layered, and suffocating. It's easy to lose track of time as the noise builds and morphs, with no discernible beginning or end to each track. This creates an unsettling experience, as the noise feels like it could continue infinitely, never resolving, never releasing you from its grip. What's particularly disturbing about Venereology is how it makes you feel. It's not just that the sound is harsh or abrasive, it's that it forces you to confront your own limits. How much can you take before you have to turn it off? The album feels like an endurance test, a challenge to your senses and your patience. The relentless, chaotic nature of the music creates a feeling of anxiety, as if you're being bombarded by something you can't control. The experience is intense, and for some, it may be deeply, deeply unsettling. But that's the point. Venereology is a deliberate rejection of conventional beauty, harmony, and form. In this entry, the chaos is absolute. The album doesn't ask you to understand it. It demands that you endure it. The experience of listening to Venereology is less about enjoyment and more about survival. It's a sonic punishment, a barrage of noise that leaves you feeling disoriented, exhausted, and perhaps even disturbed by your own ability to withstand it. For those willing to confront the extreme, Venereology is a singular experience. It's not just an album. It's an act of sonic defiance, a challenge to everything music is supposed to be. Our next descent takes us into an album that does more than just break the rules, it destroys them entirely. Shaking the Habitual, released in 2013 by The Knife, is a radical, political, and intensely experimental work that feels more like a manifesto than a traditional album. This is not an easy listen, nor is it meant to be. It's a disruptive, challenging piece of art that forces you to confront not just music, but the very structures of society itself. At its core, Shaking the Habitual is a deliberate rejection of conventions, both musically and ideologically. The album sprawls over almost 100 minutes with tracks that range from eerie ambient soundscapes to frantic, distorted electronics. The Knife abandons traditional song structures entirely, opting instead for lengthy, dissonant compositions that refuse to provide the listener with any comfort or familiarity. The result is an album that feels like it's constantly in flux, unsteady, and unpredictable. The music is jarring, filled with dissonant synths, metallic percussions, and jagged rhythms. Songs like Full of Fire feels like an assault with abrasive sounds layered on top of each other in a chaotic, almost violent arrangement. There's a tension that runs through the entire album. Nothing ever feels resolved, even in its quieter moments like the 19-minute-long Old Dreams Waiting to Be Realized. The atmosphere is thick with unease, as if something is lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to explode. But what makes Shaking the Habitual truly unsettling is the way it intertwines its radical politics with the music itself. The Knife uses this album as a platform to address issues of gender, power, and inequality, challenging societal norms in the same way they challenge musical norms. The lyrics are often fragmented, cryptic, and delivered with a sense of urgency. They touch on everything from the environment to capitalism to patriarchy, all through a lens of deconstruction and rebellion. The title itself suggests a desire to break free from the routines and systems that have been ingrained in us for centuries. The album's chaotic sound mirrors its political themes. Just as the music defies expectation, so too do the ideas behind it. The Knife doesn't just want to entertain you. They want to disrupt your understanding of the world. They want you to feel uncomfortable, to question the systems you take for granted, and to reconsider what art and activism can accomplish when they collide. An interesting aspect of Shaking the Habitual is its relationship with gender. Karen Dreger, who is half of the Knife, is known for challenging gender norms both in their public persona and through the music itself. Their vocals are often distorted, pitched up or down, creating an androgynous, alien-like quality that makes it hard to pin down any one identity. This vocal manipulation adds another layer of dissonance, reflecting the album's rejection of fixed categories and binaries. It's a challenge to the listener to rethink not just music, but the very ideas of gender and identity. The Knife didn't create Shaking the Habitual to be accessible. In fact, they did the opposite. The album's length, dissonance, and abrasive production are all intentional barriers meant to force the listener to engage with the music on a deeper, more uncomfortable level. There are no easy hooks, no catchy choruses to hold on to, just a sprawling, chaotic soundscape that refuses to give you what you expect. In this way, Shaking the Habitual is a direct critique of the way music is consumed in modern culture. It's anti-pop, anti-commercial, and defiantly unmarketable. What makes Shaking the Habitual so disturbing isn't just its sound, it's the way it forces you to confront the unsettling realities of the world around you. The album holds a mirror up to society's inequalities and injustices, and does so with a soundtrack that is as disorienting and chaotic as the issues it addresses. There's no catharsis here, no resolution, just tension, discomfort, and a relentless push to question the system that defines our lives. In this entry, the chaos isn't just musical, it's ideological. Shaking the Habitual is an album that demands engagement, both with the music and with the world. It's a radical, dissonant, and deeply unsettling experience that leaves you questioning not only what you've heard, but how you understand the world around you. Our next descent leads us into the slow, monolithic world of Earth 2, the 1993 release from Earth. This album is widely regarded as the pioneering work of the drone metal genre, a sound that strips music down to its barest elements, focusing on repetition, distortion, and sheer sonic weight. Earth 2 isn't just an album, it's an experience, one that pushes you into a meditative, almost trance-like state, where time seems to stretch out endlessly and sound becomes a physical presence. Earth 2 is built on minimalism, long, sustained notes, deeply resonant drones, and a pace that feels geological in its slowness. There are no riffs to headbang to, no vocals to sing along with, no drums to keep time. Instead, you're left with vast sprawling guitar drones that seem to hang in the air, slowly shifting and morphing like tectonic plates. The distortion is thick and immersive, creating a wall of sound that envelopes the listener completely. The music isn't just slow, it's glacial, moving at a pace that forces you to let go of any expectation of traditional song structure or progression. What's most unsettling about Earth 2 is the way it distorts your sense of time. Each track is lengthy, with the entire album stretching over an hour, but it feels much longer than that. The droning, repetitive nature of the music creates a hypnotic effect, where music begins to blur together and you lose track of where one sound ends and another begins. It's as though the album is taking you out of normal time, dragging you into its own slow-motion world where nothing happens quickly, and the only constant is the relentless, unchanging sound. The first track, Seven Angels, is a perfect example of this, clocking in at nearly half an hour. The song consists of little more than layers of distorted guitar, gradually shifting and evolving in subtle ways. There's no climax, no payoff, just a continuous wave of sound that seems to go on forever. It's an exercise in patience, demanding that you surrender to the sound and let it carry you along. What makes Earth 2 so significant, beyond its sheer minimalism, is its influence on the drone and doom metal genres that would follow. Bands like Sunno and Boris have cited Earth 2 as a major influence, taking its slow, droning approach and pushing it even further into heavier, more extreme territory. But where those bands often layer their drones with harsh vocals or crushing heaviness, Earth remains purely focused on the drone itself, the sound, the texture, the repetition. The result is an album that feels both timeless and ancient, as if you're listening to the hum of the earth itself. An interesting note about the album's recording is the deliberate lack of technical perfection. The guitars on Earth 2 were recorded in a raw, unpolished way, embracing feedback and imperfections. This gives the music a gritty, almost primal edge, as if it's being pulled from the depths of the earth itself. The production creates a sense of intimacy, as if the sound is surrounding you, vibrating through the air and into your body. It's not music you just listen to, it's music you feel. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Earth 2 is its unyielding nature. The music doesn't evolve in the way we expect. It doesn't build to a climax or resolve into something else. It simply is. The sound continues, unchanged, like the grinding of geological forces over millennia. This lack of progression can feel oppressive, as if you're stuck in an endless loop with no way out. The music doesn't comfort or soothe. It traps you in its slow, heavy grasp, refusing to let you go. In this entry, the chaos is not the music itself, but in the way it warps your perception of time and sound. Earth 2 challenges you to let go of traditional ideas of music and surrender to the drone, to the repetition, to the weight of sound itself. It's an album that exists outside of normal experience, drawing you into a world where time stretches out infinitely and sound becomes a physical force. Take a moment. We've traveled far into the unsettling, but there's more to come. Breathe. Process what you've heard and let the silence between each sound sink in. When you're ready, we'll continue our descent. Our next descent brings us to Leaves Turn Inside You, the 2001 swan song of the experimental post-hardcore band Unwound. This album feels like a slow unraveling, a deep introspective journey that captures the feeling of emotional collapse, isolation, and disintegration. It's a sprawling, immersive double album that marked the end of Unwound's career, and it's a work that feels as fragile as it is monumental. Every note feels like it's teetering on the edge of despair, creating an atmosphere of quiet intensity and reflection. Musically, Leaves Turn Inside You is a departure from the raw, abrasive energy of Unwound's earlier albums. It's more atmospheric, more experimental, blending post-hardcore with elements of shoegaze, noise rock, and post-rock. The guitars swirl in hazy layers, the drums pulse with a measured intensity, and the vocals are often delivered in a detached, almost ghostly manner. Each track seems to drift in and out of focus, creating a sense of disorientation, as if the music itself is slowly coming apart at the seams. The album's slow, deliberate pace adds to this feeling of unraveling, drawing you deeper into its melancholic world. The opening track, We Invent You, sets the tone immediately with its slow building instrumentation and haunting vocal delivery. There's a sense of inevitability in the way the song unfolds, as if the music is moving towards something dark and unavoidable. This tension runs through the entire album, with each song feeling like a piece of a larger emotional puzzle. The album doesn't follow a linear path. Instead, it spirals inward, creating a sense of being trapped inside your own thoughts and emotions. Lyrically, Leaves Turn Inside You is filled with introspective, often cryptic lines that reflect themes of isolation, loss, and identity. The lyrics are fragmented, leaving plenty of room for interpretation, but there's a clear sense of emotional weight behind every word. The vocals are often distant, buried beneath layers of sound, adding to the feeling of detachment and alienation. It's as if the narrator is struggling to find meaning or clarity in a world that feels increasingly unstable. This emotional ambiguity makes the album even more haunting, as it refuses to offer any easy answers or resolutions. What makes Leaves Turn Inside You so disturbing is its quiet intensity. The music never erupts into chaos, it stays measured and controlled, but there's a constant undercurrent of tension that builds throughout. The long, drawn-out songs leave you with a sense of lingering unease, as if you're witnessing something falling apart in slow motion. This is an album that doesn't scream its emotions, it whispers them, and in doing so, creates an even more powerful emotional impact. The recording process behind the album reflects the feeling of disintegration that runs through it. The band chose to self-record Leaves Turn Inside You, and they did so in isolation, setting up a studio in the middle of the woods in Olympia, Washington. This sense of isolation is palpable throughout the album. The music feels like it's been created in a space far removed from the rest of the world. The band took their time with the recording, experimenting with new sounds and techniques, and the result is a record that feels both meticulously crafted and emotionally raw. The tension between beauty and despair is what makes Leaves Turn Inside You so unsettling. The music is often beautiful, with lush arrangements and delicate melodies, but there's always something darker lurking just beneath the surface. The slow, deliberate pace of the album forces you to sit with these emotions, to confront the sense of unraveling that permeates every track. It's an album that feels like a reflection on the end, both the end of the band and the end of something larger, more intangible. In this entry, the chaos is emotional, not sonic. Leaves Turn Inside You pulls you into a world where beauty and despair coexist, where the boundaries between sound and silence, control and collapse, begin to blur. The album leaves you with a lingering sense of melancholy, as if you've just witnessed something fragile and fleeting slip away. Our next descent thrusts us into the brutal, unflinching world of Atomizer, the 1986 release from Big Black. Known for its abrasive sound and nihilistic themes, Atomizer is a landmark in noise rock and industrial music. It's an album that holds a mirror up to society's darkest corners, reflecting back violence, alienation, and human cruelty in its most unfiltered form. There's no beauty to be found here. Atomizer is as raw and aggressive as they come, a relentless assault on both the senses and the psyche. Musically, Atomizer is built on harsh, distorted guitars, pounding drum machines, and abrasive rhythms that seem to pummel the listener into submission. The sound is cold, mechanical, and industrial, with every note soaked in distortion and aggression. The guitar work of Steve Albini, who also handled vocal duties, is jagged and dissonant, creating a sense of tension that never lets up. The drum machine, a defining feature of Big Black's sound, gives the album an unyielding, inhuman quality. There's no groove, no flow, just a relentless pounding beat that feels more like a machine than a human behind it. Lyrically, Atomizer is filled with dark, disturbing social commentary. Albini's lyrics are biting and often detached, exploring themes of violence, power, and the inherent cruelty of human nature. The album doesn't romanticize or explain these themes. It presents them in stark, cold terms, as if to say, this is how the world is. Songs like Jordan, Minnesota, tackle real-life horrors, in this case, the infamous child abuse scandal that took place in the small Minnesota town. The lyrics, much like Big Black's work, are delivered with an emotionless, almost clinical detachment, making them all the more disturbing. It's not a call to action, it's a statement of grim reality. The violence depicted throughout Atomizer is pervasive and uncomfortable. Tracks like Kerosene describe the boredom and alienation of small-town life, where violence becomes a twisted outlet for escape. The line, "nothing to do but set myself on fire," captures the hopelessness and self-destructive urges that run through the album. There's a sense of desperation beneath the surface, but it's buried under layers of aggression and apathy. The characters in these songs aren't heroes or victims. They're broken, desensitized people trapped in their own violent, decaying worlds. One of the most unsettling aspects of Atomizer is how it forces the listener to confront these dark themes without offering any comfort or resolution. The music is aggressive and alienating, but it's the detached, cold delivery that makes the album feel so uncomfortable. Albini's vocals are often monotone, almost robotic, as if he's observing the violence from a distance. This lack of emotional engagement creates a sense of disconnect that mirrors the alienation and desensitization present in the lyrics. An interesting detail about the recording of Atomizer is that Big Black intentionally avoided the typical rock and roll setup. Instead of relying on live drums, they used a Roland TR-606 drum machine, giving the album its cold mechanical feel. The drum machine's rigid, repetitive beats add to the album's sense of unease, making the songs feel even more oppressive and inescapable. Albini's obsession with achieving a raw, unpolished sound also shaped the album's brutal sonic landscape. Everything about Atomizer feels deliberate. In its harshness, there's no room for softness or humanity. What makes Atomizer so disturbing is its complete lack of empathy. The album doesn't offer solutions or even explanations for the violence it depicts. It simply presents it, raw and unfiltered. There's no moral stance, no judgment, just a cold, clinical examination of humanity at its worst. The relentless aggression of the music, combined with the dark, detached lyrics, creates an atmosphere of complete hopelessness. It's not just that the album is loud or abrasive, it's that it feels like it's actively trying to make you uncomfortable. In this entry, the chaos is both sonic and psychological. Atomizer doesn't just challenge you with its aggressive sound, it forces you to confront the darker, more violent aspects of the human experience. It's an album that leaves you feeling unsettled, disoriented, and perhaps even a little complicit in the violence it depicts. Our next descent leads us into an album that is as haunting as it is beautiful. A work that captures the sound of decay itself, William Basinski's The Disintegration Loops. Released in 2002, this album is less of a traditional composition and more of a sonic artifact, a document of the slow, inevitable collapse of sound over time. It's an album that embodies impermanence, loss, and memory, evoking a deep emotional response as you hear the music literally disintegrate before your ears. The story behind the Disintegration Loops is almost as significant as the music itself. In the late 1980s, Basinski had recorded a series of ambient loops on old magnetic tapes. Years later, in 2001, he attempted to transfer these loops to a digital format, but as he played them back, the tapes began to physically deteriorate. The magnetic particles that held the sound in place were literally falling off the tape, causing the music to gradually disintegrate. What began as simple, repeating melodies slowly collapsed into fragmented, distorted echoes of their former selves. Basinski captured the process in real time, creating an album that is both haunting and deeply moving. Musically, the Disintegration Loops is deceptively simple. Each track begins with a short, repeating orchestral loop, melancholic and meditative. But as the loop plays on, you begin to hear it unravel. Small imperfections appear, fragments of sound drop out, and the loops become more and more distorted. By the end of each track, what once was a clear, beautiful melody has been reduced to a ghostly, fractured remnant of its former self. It's a deeply unsettling experience as you witness the gradual destruction of the music in real time. What makes this album so disturbing isn't its sound, but the feeling it evokes. The Disintegration Loops is a reflection on decay and loss, how everything, no matter how beautiful, eventually falls apart. The music's slow deterioration mirrors the way memories fade, relationships erode, and time wears everything down. The loops repeat over and over, giving the impression of something eternal. But that eternity is fragile, and you can hear it breaking apart. It's a meditation on impermanence, on the fact that nothing lasts forever, not even the things we hold most dear. The emotional weight of this album was amplified by its association with the events of 9/11. As Basinski was finalizing the recordings of the disintegration loops, the attacks on the World Trade Center took place. He and his friends watched in horror as the towers fell, with the final moments of daylight captured on video, while the disintegration loops played in the background. The music, which was already a reflection on decay and impermanence, suddenly became a requiem for the lives lost in the tragedy. This connection between the album and 9/11 gives the music a profound sense of mourning, turning it into a sonic elegy for the collapse of not just sound, but life itself. The disintegration loops also holds a significant place in the world of ambient music and experimental sound art. The way Basinski embraced the concepts of decay, letting the music degrade naturally rather than trying to preserve it, was revolutionary. It's a powerful statement about the beauty of imperfection and the inevitability of change. Instead of resisting the breakdown of the music, Basinski allowed it to happen, turning the process of destruction into an artistic statement. This approach has influenced countless artists in the ambient and experimental music scenes, cementing the disintegration loops as a landmark work. What makes the disintegration loop so disturbing is its quiet inevitability. There's no aggression here, no chaotic noise or dissonance. Instead, the music slowly unravels in the most delicate way possible, leaving you with a sense of loss and sadness that grows more profound as the album progresses. You can hear the beauty slipping away, little by little, until all that's left is a distorted echo of what once was. It's a reminder that everything we love is fragile, and that time will eventually take it all away. In this entry, the chaos is not violent. It's a quiet chaos of time, slowly eroding everything in its path. The disintegration loops captures that moment of collapse, the fragile beauty of something slipping away forever. It's an album that lingers in your mind long after the final note fades, a haunting reflection on loss, decay, and the inevitability of change. Our next descent takes us into an album that feels less like music and more like a slow, meditative reflection on time, memory, and impermanence. Stars on the Lid's 2007 release and their refinement of the decline is an expansive minimalistic work that stretches across 2 discs, drawing the listener into a deep, almost hypnotic state. This is not an album meant to be actively listened to. It's meant to envelop you, to sink into the background and slowly reshape your perception of time and space. It's a sonic meditation, one that asks you to surrender to its quiet, ethereal beauty. The music on and their refinement of the decline is ambient in the truest sense. There are no beats, no discernible melodies, and no traditional structures. Instead, the album is built around long, sustained drones, soft strings, and gently evolving soundscapes that seem to float in the air. Each piece feels like it's barely there, as if the sound is slowly dissolving into the atmosphere. It's music that invites stillness and introspection, asking you to slow down, to listen to the space between the notes, and feel the weight of time passing. What makes this album so unsettling is its ability to blur the line between sound and silence. The music moves so slowly, so deliberately, that it creates a sense of suspended time. Minutes stretch out into what feels like hours as each drone, each soft hum, gently fades in and out of focus. There's an overwhelming sense of stillness that runs through the album, creating a meditative atmosphere that can be both calming and unnerving. The more you listen, the more you become aware of the quiet, subtle shifts in tone and texture, small changes that, over time, take on a monumental significance. The album's title and their refinement of the decline reflects the delicate balance between beauty and decay that defines the work. The word refinement suggests a careful, intentional process, while decline evokes the idea of gradual breakdown and loss. This duality runs through every note of the album, as it explores the tension between creation and dissolution, between growth and decay. It's music that feels timeless, yet deeply connected to the idea of impermanence. Unlike much of the ambient genre, where electronic elements dominate, Stars of the Lid rely heavily on organic instrumentation, strings, horns, and soft guitar tones, all processed and stretched out into long, drawn-out drones. The result is a sound that feels simultaneously grounded and otherworldly. The strings often evoke the feeling of being in a vast, empty space, echoing across an endless expanse of time. The music doesn't lead you anywhere, but instead invites you to simply exist within its sonic landscape. The beauty of and their refinement of the decline lies in its subtlety. It doesn't demand your attention, nor does it overwhelm you with emotion or complexity. Instead, it quietly draws you in, creating a space where you can reflect on the nature of time, memory, and the slow, inevitable decline that all things are subject to. It's an album that makes you feel acutely aware of your own mortality, not through grand dramatic gestures, but through the quiet, persistent presence of time passing. An interesting aspect of Stars of the Lid's work is their approach to performance and composition. They often describe their music as drug-free sleep music, hinting at its ability to lull the listener into a trance-like state. It's a form of ambient music that is less concerned with melody or rhythm and more focused on creating a sense of space, a place for the listener to rest, reflect, or drift into a dreamlike state. But within this restful atmosphere is an underlying sense of melancholy, a subtle reminder that nothing, not even time, lasts forever. What makes this album so haunting is the way it captures the beauty of decline. The slow, gentle unraveling of sound mirrors the natural process of aging, decay, and the passage of time. There's no aggression here, no conflict, just the quiet, inevitable movement of time, slowly wearing everything down. The music doesn't fight against this decline, but instead embraces it, finding a kind of peaceful resignation in the process. In this entry, the chaos is not immediate or violent. It's the slow, almost imperceptible chaos of time, gently eroding everything in its path. And their refinement of the decline invites you to sit with this understanding, to listen to the subtle beauty in the act of fading away, and to find peace in the inevitability of decline. Our next descent leads us into an album drenched in melancholy, a work that feels like the sonic embodiment of isolation and emotional weight. Planning for Burial's 2017 release, Below the House, is a deeply personal journey through grief, loss, and self-reflection. The album blends elements of slowcore, doom metal, shoegaze, and dark ambient to create a sound that is both crushingly heavy and hauntingly fragile. It's a work that pulls you into its dark, introspective world, where sadness and solitude are ever present. The music of Below the House feels as though it's being played in a space filled with shadows, distant, echoing, and oppressive. The guitars are often drenched in reverb and distortion, creating a wall of sound that feels almost suffocating in its density. Yet, within the heaviness, there are moments of quiet reflection, soft, mournful piano lines, or sparse acoustic strumming that feels like flickers of light in an otherwise dark room. These contrasts between weight and fragility are what give the album its emotional depth, as the music oscillates between overwhelming sorrow and moments of delicate vulnerability. What makes Below the House so unsettling is its raw, unfiltered emotional content. The album feels less like a polished work of art and more like a personal journal, an outpouring of feelings that are too heavy to contain. The lyrics, often buried beneath layers of sound, are deeply introspective and filled with themes of grief, depression, and emotional disconnection. They capture the feeling of being trapped in your own mind, unable to escape the weight of your own thoughts. It's music that forces you to sit with those feelings, to confront them, and to let them wash over you. The title of the album, Below the House, reflects the sense of emotional weight. There's a feeling of being trapped beneath something, perhaps memories, regrets, or unspoken pain. The house becomes a metaphor for the self, and the music takes the listener down into the basement, into the hidden corners of the psyche where sadness and darkness reside. The album's sound mirrors this descent with its slow, droning pace and heavy, distorted guitars that seem to pull you deeper into a space of emotional confinement. The track Warmth of You exemplifies the album's ability to balance heaviness with delicate emotion. It's a slow, mournful piece that builds from a soft acoustic intro into a wall of crushing guitars and feedback. The vocals are distant, almost ghostly, as if they're being sung from a place far removed from the rest of the world. The music feels like it's constantly on the verge of collapse, reflecting the emotional fragility at the heart of the album. There's a sense of catharsis in the way the music builds and releases, but it's a catharsis that comes from accepting the sadness rather than fighting against it. An interesting aspect of Below the House is the way it was recorded. Planning for Burial is the solo project of Tom Weslick, and much of the album was recorded alone, in isolation. This solitude is deeply felt in the music. It feels intimate, almost claustrophobic at times. The lo-fi production adds to this feeling, giving the album a raw, unpolished quality that makes it feel all the more personal. There's no attempt to mask the imperfections, which only adds to the album's sense of vulnerability. What makes Below the House so emotionally disturbing is its ability to tap into universal feelings of grief, loss, and isolation, while still feeling deeply personal. The music is heavy, not just in its sound, but in the emotion it conveys. It's an album that leaves you feeling the weight of every note, every word, as if you're carrying the emotional burden along with the artist. The slow, deliberate pacing of the music mirrors the slow process of grieving. There's no rush, no easy resolution, just a long, drawn-out reckoning with sadness. In this entry, the chaos is internal. Below the House is an emotional descent, a journey into the darker corners of the self where sadness, grief, and isolation dwell. The music pulls you into its heavy, introspective world and forces you to sit with those emotions, to feel their weight and acknowledge their presence. It's an album that resonates deeply with those who have experienced loss, and it leaves you with the unsettling sense that some wounds may never fully heal. Our next descent takes us into an album that feels like a confessional, a raw and deeply personal exploration of depression, death, and the search for meaning in the face of overwhelming despair. Dan Barrett's self-titled project, Giles Corey, released in 2011, is a haunting meditation on mental illness and existential crisis. It's not just music, it's an outpouring of anguish delivered with lo-fi intimacy and lyrical vulnerability that makes it one of the most emotionally raw entries on this iceberg. The music of Giles Corey is minimalistic yet deeply atmospheric, blending folk, post-rock, and ambient influences with a haunting lo-fi aesthetic. The songs feel like they were recorded in an empty room, with Barrett's hushed vocals and sparse instrumentation, giving the album an eerie, intimate quality. Each note is soaked in melancholy, with acoustic guitar, piano, and ambient noise creating a soundscape that feels as fragile as the emotions it conveys. It's not just the lyrics that reflect sadness, the music itself seems to be unraveling, as if it's barely holding together under the weight of its own grief. What makes Giles Corey so unsettling is the unflinching honesty. The lyrics are filled with dark existential themes, depression, death, and the desire for escape. Barrett's words often feel like they're being pulled from the depths of his soul as he's grappling with feelings of hopelessness and loss. The vocals are delivered in a quiet, almost whisper-like manner, adding to the album's confessional tone. Tracks like No One Is Ever Going to Want Me capture this emotional intensity perfectly, with lyrics that lay bare the pain of feeling unloved and unseen in a world that feels indifferent. One of the most powerful aspects of Giles Corey is its exploration of death, not just as an abstract concept, but as a real, ever-present force in Barrett's life. The album's name itself is a reference to Giles Corey, a man who was pressed to death during the Salem witch trials after refusing to enter a plea. The sense of death as both a historical and personal force runs throughout the album, as Barrett reflects on his own mortality and the weight of existence. The recurring themes of suicide and self-destruction are presented not as melodramatic, but as deeply felt, lived experiences. A fascinating and deeply unsettling aspect of Giles Corey is the connection to Dan Barrett's broader explorations of death and the afterlife through his work with the project Have a Nice Life. Both projects reflect Barrett's ongoing struggle with depression, anxiety, and existential dread, but Giles Corey is more intimate, more personal. The album is accompanied by a booklet that includes essays, journal entries, and reflections on suicide and death, adding another layer of depth and vulnerability to the work. This written material enhances the already heavy emotional weight of the music, making it feel like a window into Barrett's darkest thoughts. Despite the darkness of the album, there is a strange kind of beauty in its sorrow. Tracks like The Haunting Presence feature lush, atmospheric soundscapes that feel almost otherworldly, as if the music is reaching for something beyond the pain, beyond the present moment. There are moments of catharsis here, but they come at a price. The price of confronting your own mortality, your own significance in the grand scheme of things. What makes Giles Corey so deeply disturbing isn't just its content. It's the way it invites the listener to sit with these feelings of depression and despair. There is no happy resolution, no moment of relief, just a slow, meditative descent into the darkest corners of the mind. The lo-fi production, the hushed vocals, the minimalist instrumentation, all of it creates a claustrophobic atmosphere, as if you're trapped inside your own head, unable to escape the weight of your thoughts. In this entry, the chaos is emotional, not physical. Giles Corey forces you to confront the darkest aspects of human existence: loneliness, grief, and the inevitability of death. It's an album that lingers long after it's over, leaving you with a sense of quiet unease and the haunting realization that some questions may never have answers. Our next descent takes us into a world that feels suspended between the earth and the stars, a place where isolation and detachment create a sonic landscape that is both vast and intimate. Duster's 1998 debut album, Stratosphere, is a lo-fi masterpiece that captures the feeling of drifting aimlessly through space, lost in your own thoughts as the world around you slowly fades into the distance. This album doesn't demand your attention, it slowly envelops you, pulling you deeper into its melancholic atmosphere with each passing tone. Musically, Stratosphere is built on a foundation of lo-fi production, dreamy guitar work, and minimalist arrangements that feel deliberately understated. The guitars are drenched in reverb and delay, creating a sound that feels distant and weightless, like signals from a far-off star. The drums are soft and unhurried, more of a steadied pulse than a driving force, and the bass lines weave gently in and out of the mix, creating a sense of space and openness. There's a lethargy to the sound, as if the music itself is slowly unraveling, suspended in time and drifting through an endless void. What makes Stratosphere so unsettling is its sense of emotional detachment. The vocals are often buried beneath layers of sound, delivered in a hushed, almost monotone manner, as if the singer is far removed from the world around him. The lyrics are sparse and cryptic, touching on themes of loneliness, isolation, and the quiet despair of feeling disconnected from everything. The emotional distance between the words and the music create a sense of alienation that lingers throughout the album, as if the listener is caught in a dream where nothing feels quite right. The opening track, Moon Age, sets the tone immediately with its slow, hypnotic guitar lines and whispered vocals, drawing you into a world that feels both expansive and intimate. There's a sense of endless space in the music, as if you're floating through the stratosphere with no clear direction or purpose. The repetition of simple, melancholic melodies creates a trance-like effect, making the listener feel as though they're slowly drifting away from the familiar and into the unknown. Lyrically, the album is sparse, but the words that do appear are filled with a quiet sense of longing and detachment. Duster never spells things out clearly, leaving the listener to interpret the emotional undercurrents beneath the surface. This ambiguity only adds to the album's haunting atmosphere, as you're left to project your own feelings of loneliness and isolation into the music. The lack of resolution, both musically and lyrically, gives Stratosphere a sense of timelessness, as if it exists in a space where emotions and memories have become untethered from the real world. The lo-fi production of the album also plays a crucial role in creating its unsettling, dreamlike quality. The imperfections in the recording, the tape hiss, the slightly out-of-tune guitars, the distant, echoing vocals give the album a raw, intimate feel, as though you're hearing a transmission from another time or place. These imperfections add to the album's sense of fragility, as if the music could disintegrate at any moment, leaving only faint echoes behind. What makes Stratosphere so affecting is the way it captures the feeling of being lost, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. The music creates a sense of drifting, of being suspended in a place where time doesn't matter, and where nothing ever quite resolves. The quiet, repetitive nature of the songs invites introspection, asking the listener to sit with their own thoughts and feelings, to confront their own sense of isolation. It's an album that doesn't push you towards any particular emotional response, but instead leaves you to find your own way through its hazy, melancholic landscape. In this entry, the chaos is internal, hidden beneath layers of dreamy guitars and soft, hypnotic rhythms. Stratosphere is an album that quietly unravels the listener, pulling you deeper into its world of emotional detachment and spacey melancholy. It's not an album that overwhelms, it quietly seeps into your consciousness, leaving you with the unsettling feeling that you've been drifting alone in the vastness of space. Our final descent for Tier 3 Part 1 takes us into a world of pure chaos and absurdity with Mr. Bungle's 1991 self-titled debut album. This is not your typical rock record. It's a frenzied collection of genres, a carnival of madness where anything and everything goes. From avant-garde metal to jazz, funk, ska, and circus music, Mr. Bungle throws convention out the window and pulls you into a world where disorder reigns supreme. But beneath the absurdity lies a darker, more unsettling core, an album that uses humor, irony, and shock value to explore disturbing themes of violence, perversion, and existential dread. Musically, the album is an unpredictable roller coaster ride. Mr. Bungle, led by Mike Patton of Faith No More fame, blends an eclectic array of styles into a sound that's hard to pin down. One moment, you're hearing thrash metal riffs and screaming vocals. The next, you're thrown into a jazzy saxophone break or a lounge-style ballad. The transitions are often jarring, but they are part of what makes the album so captivating and disturbing. It's as if Mr. Bungle is constantly pulling the rug out from under you, refusing to let you settle into any one sound or feeling. The track, quote-unquote, originally titled Travolta, sets the tone for the album's unsettling mix of surrealism and grotesque imagery. The song opens with an eerie circus-like melody before descending into chaotic metal, with lyrics that hint at mental instability and sinister desires. This combination of disturbing content and absurd musical shifts is what defines Mr. Bungle's sound throughout the album. It's disorienting, like being trapped in a twisted funhouse where nothing is what it seems, and everything is a little too close to madness. Lyrically, Mr. Bungle doesn't shy away from taboo subjects. The album explores themes of violence, sexuality, and perversion with a sense of dark, often grotesque humor. Tracks like Squeeze Me Macaroni feature absurd, borderline nonsensical lyrics about food and sex, while My Ass Is on Fire combines surrealist imagery with aggressive, chaotic instrumentation. The humor is dark and twisted, pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable and using shock value to unsettle the listener. But the absurdity of the lyrics only serves to heighten the album's sense of unpredictability, making you question whether you should be laughing, cringing, or both. What makes Mr. Bungle so disturbing is the way it uses humor to mask deeper, darker themes. The album's genre blending and chaotic structure create an atmosphere of absurdity, but beneath that surface, there's an undercurrent of unease. The constant shifting between styles mirrors the album's shifting emotional tones. One moment it's playful and irreverent, the next it's violent and threatening. The juxtaposition of lighthearted humor with disturbing content makes the album feel like a joke that's gone too far, where the punchline is something far more sinister than you expected. An interesting story about the album's release is that it was heavily censored and controversial. Mr. Bungle was known for its provocative, often offensive performances, and this extended to their music as well. The album's original artwork, featuring an image of a clown, was replaced after concerns about its disturbing nature, and several song titles and lyrics were altered to avoid controversy. But even with these changes, Mr. Bungle remained a deeply unsettling and provocative album, one that used its absurdity and shock value to challenge societal norms and expectations. The chaotic energy of the album is not just a stylistic choice, it's a reflection of the band's desire to disrupt, to challenge the listener's expectation of what music can be. Mr. Bungle doesn't just blend genres, it smashes them together, creating a sound that is disorienting, unpredictable, and at times downright disturbing. It's an album that refuses to play by the rules, instead reveling in its own chaotic identity. In this entry, the chaos is all-encompassing. Mr. Bungle's self-titled album is a whirlwind of sound, humor, and darkness, blending absurdity with unsettling content in a way that leaves you feeling off balance and unsure of what's coming next. It's an album that challenges you to embrace the chaos, to laugh at the absurdity, while also confronting the uncomfortable truths buried within the noise. As we close the first part of our descent into Tier 3 Part 1, we've journeyed through a wide spectrum of unsettling sounds and chaotic emotions, from the relentless assault of noise to introspective reflections on isolation, loss, and death. These albums have challenged us to confront the darker side of the human experience. Each entry has pushed the boundaries of music and emotion, taking us deeper into a world where chaos and beauty collide, where catharsis is found, not in comfort, but in the raw, unfiltered reality of existence. But this is only the beginning of Tier 3. The second part promises even more disorienting, more challenging, and more disturbing albums that will take us further into the abyss. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss Part 2 of this descent into labyrinths of chaos and catharsis. Let me know in the comments which album piqued your interest the most, or which one you're most curious to explore. This is only the halfway point. The true depths still await.